What up, everybody? This is Joseph, aka Footy Foster, back with the third episode of the Footy Foster podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today, for taking a little bit of time and hearing what I have to say. I genuinely appreciate it. It means the world to me. Really does mean the world to me. So today, I got a pretty fun episode, or at least I think it's going to be a fun episode. I'm going to talk about the United States qualifying for the World Cup for the first time in 8 years. UNC beat Duke yesterday in the Final Four. And again, I'm recording this on Sunday. It is going to drop tomorrow, which will be tomorrow. So Monday the 4th. But Saturday, UNC beat Duke in the Final Four. One of the most historic basketball games of all time. And then why I enjoy reading and writing, and some of the benefits that I think I gain from both reading and writing. And then to cap it off, I'm going to be interviewing a Twitter friend of mine. His name is Eldin Hasic. I might be mispronouncing his name. We met on Twitter. Both big United States national team fans, and just happens to be that he lives like 30-40 miles away from me. We met on Twitter. So that was pretty crazy. But he's a very interesting guy. Very smart, very intelligent. Like the way he thinks and the way that he composes himself online. So very excited to get to actually talk to him for the first time. Like kind of talk face to face, even though it'll be through Zoom. So that'll be really cool. Me and him are going to talk about the World Cup draw, specifically a little bit more in depth about the USA group. And then I plan on asking him, like, what are some good accounts to follow in regards to the United States men's national team on Twitter, and his thoughts on the United States men's national team Twitter in general, because there's been a lot of discussion online recently about is it toxic? Is it toxic? Is it not toxic? To me, depends on who you're following and who you're engaging with online. But, as with all online spaces, it certainly can be. And then again, that's just my opinion. So if you're one of those guys who doesn't think it is, that's your opinion. You're entitled to that opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. We don't have to have the same opinion. That's how opinions work. That's pretty cool, right? So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into my bit, and let's go ahead and talk about the United States qualifying. So a couple weeks ago, I blogged and I talked about it on the podcast, what we realistically needed to do to qualify for the World Cup. And I said 4 points, 4 or 5 points, no matter what, will get us there. I had us losing to Mexico, beating Panama, and then tying Costa Rica. I was a little off. We tied Mexico, beat Panama, lost to Costa Rica. And if you think about it, it certainly makes sense that it happened that way, especially after getting the point down in Mexico City and then beating Panama. That was an emotional high for this group because it wasn't in the bag after winning and beating Panama, especially in the manner that we did, but it was more or less was. We had to lose to Costa Rica by 6 to fall out of automatic qualification and then end up in the playoff. And that was just never, ever going to happen. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if this was real or not, but I could have sworn that I saw a photo of the players after beating Panama down in Orlando holding up a sign that said that they were qualified. So like they were kind of already mentally checked out going into the Costa Rica game. And I know a lot of us wanted to see the United States beat Costa Rica and potentially finish on top of the group, which if we had beaten Costa Rica, I think it would have happened depending on the goal difference, because Canada lost. But again, like the goal was to qualify. They pretty much did that by beating Panama and by beating them by so much to protect us on goal difference that it was in the bag. So I don't think that no matter who was on the field last Wednesday night that we were going to beat Costa Rica. There was just no way. We have a bad history of playing in Costa Rica. So, that game is what it is. We lost. It wasn't pretty. We gave up 2 goals on set pieces. It happens. So I'm not going to say, I don't think that's a bad omen for us going into Qatar later this year, especially because it's still 6-7 months away in November. But, you know, we made it back. And that's the key thing. Like, we made it back. That was the goal. Like, that's the expectation. Like, we have to be in the World Cup to be taken seriously as a soccer country. Um, and besides, as far as getting to, like, when you get to the World Cup, the expectation is just to be there and to compete. If you make it out of the group stages, awesome. If you don't, like, it doesn't look great, but, like, you can't always expect it to happen. I mean, let's look at Germany back in 2018. They won the World Cup in 2014. Going into 2018, they were one of the favorites. They didn't make it out of their group. They didn't make it out of the group. And that's Germany. Germany has won countless World Cups. They're loaded with players every single year. They've always got a core group of guys that plays at Bayern Munich, which is absolutely instrumental to national team success, is familiarity, because you have so little time together as international play. They didn't make it out of the group stage. So, and that's something I've been harping about on Twitter recently, especially since I started reading this book, What Happened to the United States Men's National Team, The Ugly Truth About the Beautiful Game by Stephen G. Mandis. Stephen, I highly doubt that you're going to listen to this, but if by chance you do, this book is awesome, dude. This has been such an incredible book to be reading so far. A lot of good insights, very logical. I love the way that you look at things. Like in the book, one of the key things he talks about is expectations as far as national teams go, and that's something that I've been kind of reiterating on Twitter. And even before I started reading this book, I was like, man, we're just expecting too much out of a young group of guys, like with the average age being 23, like, and a lot of players playing over in Europe. Sure, are we expecting this team to go and win the World Cup in November, December? I don't think so. Like, that would be insane if that happened. That would be genuinely crazy. It would take a fortuitous amount of luck. We would have to get a super lucky draw, getting, first you got to make it out of the group stage, which is not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. And then you got to get a good lucky draw in the round of 16 game, and then going forward, like, are we good enough to beat France in a one-off game? Germany, Spain, Belgium, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina. Are we good enough to Portugal? Are we good enough to beat these teams in a one-off game with everything on the line right now? Conventional wisdom tells you no, especially because those are all older, more experienced teams, especially in terms of international play. But they are there, and they have the chance to compete, and that's all you can ask for, in my opinion. That's all you can ask for. My favorite quote from the book so far, I might have to go to my Twitter account to actually be able to pull this up. So if you hear some clicking in the background, I apologize. You are going to hear some clicking. Just pulling up my Twitter. This is super engaging. This is great content. Happiness. Okay, here's the quote. Happiness equals reality minus expectations. Raise your expectations beyond reality's capacity to meet them, and misery follows. Basically, and I tweeted this the other day, and I had somebody respond. A friend of mine from Twitter named Huff said, "Not sure what you're trying to say, man. Should our expectations of winning games not be that? Are they too high? We should expect to have good performances no matter who we play." And to a degree, I agree with him. Like, you want to, you should expect, we're getting to the point where we should expect to win more times than we lose. But qualifying in CONCACAF is not easy, no matter who you're playing, especially in these countries that aren't as developed as us and don't have the resources that we have. They know how to play these games. They know how to play these World Cup qualifying games, especially in their home country. The fields aren't as good, and they use that to their advantage. They make the game sloppy. They tighten up the back, and they try and hit you on the break. And that's what they've always done. That's what they're going to continue to do. So it's not easy. So as far as expectations, we just need to be realistic with our expectations, especially with a group of young players that don't have international experience, players that even though they play in Europe, they don't get the minutes that, like, the superstars of England do, that of France, Spain, of Belgium, like those, like, hell, even Denmark, Germany, Poland, Holland. Those teams have guys that are playing consistently week in and week out in the top level of European football, European soccer. That makes more of a difference than just being on a team that plays in the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1 in France. Just being on the team is great, but you got to have the minutes to back it up. If you're not playing those games, you're not really getting the experience that you need to play at this level. And again, I'm pretty sure I said this last week. 2022 is about preparing for 2026. That's what this World Cup qualifying, this is what this World Cup cycle is about. It's about preparing for 2026. We want to come out in 2026 on home turf with a much older group, much more experienced group, a group that's been playing together for 5-6 years, been playing top flight football for 5-6-7 years, and then see what we can do. That's going to be the measuring stick for us. And then going forward from there, it's about continuing that level of play and not just having it be a flash in the pan. So, bottom line, we qualified. We're back. The USA is so freaking back. I can't wait to watch us play in the World Cup. It's been way too long. I was 18 years old the last time I got to watch the United States play in the World Cup. I was at Myrtle Beach for I think it was the USA-Ghana game was the first game, if I'm not mistaken. I was at Myrtle Beach with 7 of my friends from high school. We had just graduated, and I'm not going to get into details of what was going on down there in Myrtle Beach, but mentally we weren't all quite there. But we had so much fun watching that game, and they don't even like soccer like I do, but we were just super into it together because it was about something bigger than us. It was about the states. It was about the country. It was about unity, and that's to me what the World Cup represents. So I'm super super excited for the World Cup to get around. And at the tail end of the year, great to be back. Congratulations, Greg. Congratulations, boys, on getting us there. Greg, you got doubters and you got haters. I am not one of them. I used to be, but that was because I was just listening to everybody on Twitter saying that you're a bad coach. You're not a bad coach, man. You're a good coach. I don't always agree with your roster selections, but I'm not the coach. You are. You got the job done. You got us back. Hell yeah. Congratulations. Let's go States. All right. UNC Duke yesterday, Saturday. Wow. That was something I never expected to see. UNC and Duke playing each other, not just in the NCAA tournament, but in the Final Four. And not just in the Final Four, but in Coach K's last season of coaching. That was his last game. Assuming that he doesn't come back. That was Coach K's last game ever. And as a lifelong Tar Heel, I have a certain level of disdain for Coach K. But to go with that disdain, there is obviously a tremendous amount of respect because he's a hell of a basketball coach. He has been for a long time. He's won several gold medals with the USA. He's won 5 national championships with Duke. He's a hell of a basketball coach. I don't like everything about the man, but you got to give respect where respect is due. Coach K, you had a hell of a career. Part of me, since I've been a coach for the past 2 years now, I sympathize with coaches a little bit more, especially because they get scrutinized way more than any profession anywhere in the world. They get fired more than any profession in the world. Coach K, hats off on a great career. Part of me, it really killed me seeing you go out like that because I know how you felt inside, and I know how you felt seeing your boys cry in the locker room. But as a Tar Heel, I gotta say, god damn, it's kind of sweet at the same time. That was one of the best college basketball games I've ever watched. One of the best basketball games I've ever watched. I think the officiating in the second half was a little bit ticky-tacky. I just let them play a little bit more. But other than that, I don't think there are too many complaints. Kenny Smith in the postgame made a great comment about you can't really single out any one player for quote-unquote losing the game. and especially in a game of that magnitude. Good God, that would have been so awful because it's just the nature of sports. People throw stones from afar because it's easy to do, and people get so emotionally invested. You can't point a finger at any kid on either team and say you lost that game. Um, Unbelievable. Uh, 2 months ago, Carolina was on the bubble. I've not, truthfully, not watched like hardly any college basketball up until March. I watched the Carolina Duke game back in February where Carolina got thumped at home, and then I watched the Carolina Duke game in Durham, and then I've watched every tournament game that Carolina has played in, and just it's so like I followed with the results every throughout the year. Just don't necessarily watch every game. Carolina had a tough start to the season. They got blown out several times by big name schools, Kentucky included. I can't remember who else they lost to, but they got thumped over and over again at the beginning of the year. So looking back, like if you would have told me in December, early January that Carolina was going to be in the national championship game in April, I would have called you a liar, and I would have said, "Why are you messing with me?" But damn, Hubert Davis, you did it, man. You did it. You can't obviously give him all the credit. The players are the ones out there playing the game, but the coach has to get a lot of credit. Hubert, you've done an incredible job with this team. I'm so excited to watch your future and watch your entire career at North Carolina because you seem like just a very genuine and very, very good man. And there's no one else that I would rather have at the helm of North Carolina basketball than you, except for maybe Roy, but he's done. If Roy wants you, I want you. Hubert, goodness gracious, man, let's get it done. I'm not certain that Carolina is going to actually be able to hang with Kansas, especially Armando Bacot sprained his ankle last night. So that's the biggest question mark by far. If Mondo's good to go, Carolina's got a chance. If he's not good to go, it's over from the start, more or less. I don't know. Normally in the past, like 2017, 2018, the last two times that Carolina was in the championship game, I was an emotional wreck. I wasn't really nervous that much last night. And I'm not really that nervous for tomorrow because this kind of goes back to the expectations thing that I was talking about with the United States national team. I thought they were going to lose the first game to whoever they play. I can't even remember who they played in the first game right now. I thought they were going to lose. Marquette. They played Marquette, thought they were going to lose, beat the shit out of them, beat Baylor, made it the rest of the way, beat Duke Saturday night. So they've already defied my expectations. This is all icing on the cake. So just making it to the title game in and of itself is a huge, huge accomplishment. I know those players really want to win. They're going to give it everything they got. So it should be a really fun basketball game tomorrow night. It's kind of cool for Roy Williams too. I saw a tweet last night saying that this is his retirement tour, getting to watch Carolina and Kansas play in the national championship game. That's going to be a pretty cool moment for him. Watching the two schools that he spent both, I think he was at Kansas for 15 years. He was at Carolina for almost 20. So like the last 40 years of his life are Carolina and Kansas basketball. And he's going to get to watch them in the final or in the national championship game. That's going to be special for him. And that makes me really happy for Roy. Just excited to watch the game, so that'll be a lot of fun. Watch that with my old man. Hopefully there are going to be tears either way. There were tears last night. My poor dad started hyperventilating with 10 seconds left when he realized that we were going to win. I was just trying to calm him down. I was like, Dad, breathe. Like, it's not completely over yet. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, just trying to keep him level because I didn't want to see him like crash. Because going back to the 2017 national championship game, Marcus Page hits that double clutch three to tie the game with 5 seconds left. Chris Jenkins comes down to hit the dagger to win it. When Marcus Page hit that shot, I thought we were going to take it to overtime and win. That swing of emotions was so great that I just lost it at the final buzzer. So I was trying to do the same thing for my dad, just trying to keep him level. But also seeing the joy, just the pure joy on my dad's face after the final whistle last night was pretty special. and to me is kind of what sports are all about. So awesome stuff. Can't wait for tomorrow night. Let's go Heels. All right. So to cap off my bit for the pod today, just going to talk about reading and writing for a little bit. So this is something I growing up, I was a huge reader. I was the one kid that read at a much higher grade book level than all my other classmates. And then I think it was probably late middle school, high school when I like just stopped reading. And I think it was partially because like when you get into high school and then you get into college, like you have to read. You're forced to read to pass your classes, and so probably for 8-10 years I don't think I ever picked up a book from age like 14 to 24. It was just not gonna happen. um but I'm back to reading. Even before I started 75 hard, I read here and there. Now it's a daily thing, which I want it to be a daily thing for the rest of my life, because I think that we as humans should always continue to try and learn about something. There's so many different things that we could potentially learn in this life. So just spend some time learning and becoming more intellectual, and it makes you more interesting. You have more things to talk about with people when you're interacting with people. Um, so I got done like a week or two ago reading Leading by Alex Ferguson. That felt like a good book for me to read in my pursuit of coaching. Um, why not learn from the best to do it, right? Then at Barnes and Noble, I think I mentioned this book earlier in the show today. What Happened to the United States Men's National Team? I can't put this damn book down. This book is really good. Right now, he's kind of listing off World Cups in order that we've participated in, and like breaking down game by game what's going on and kind of setting the scene. Because a lot of it, like I've talked about it now the third time, it's expectations. We as United States fans have a weird relationship with these expectations, because 1990 was the first World Cup the United States had been to since 1950, and then since then the expectations rise. So it's been really cool to read and get to learn a little bit more history about the United States men's national team. So I've been mainly sticking to nonfiction. I also picked up Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, former Emperor of Rome. That's been a good read. Kind of getting in touch with my spiritual side a little bit. Very fascinating. If anybody knows anything about Stoicism, that's kind of what this is all about. Some good quotes. Here's a good one. Don't waste the rest of your life here worrying about other people unless it affects the common good. It will keep you from doing anything useful. That was the last thing I read and highlighted in this book, because I feel like a lot of us do waste our time worrying about other people, and it's not for the common good. It's for BS, for lack of a better word. And then going on to say it'll keep you from doing anything useful. If you're using all that mental energy concerned about what other people are doing or saying, you're not putting your own energy out into the world to create or do good. You're just worrying, and worrying doesn't really do anybody any good. So very fascinating. I've also been reading the Lord of the Rings series. I'm almost done with Fellowship of the Ring. I don't get to read this one in quite as much. With 75 hard, you have to read a nonfiction book, so reading this wouldn't count. If I do read this, I'll read a couple of pages before bed. On page 285 out of like 400 something. I love Lord of the Rings. One of my favorite movies of all time. The book has been, people always say, oh, the book is so much better than the movie. This might be the first time that I've actually ever felt that way. It's just a little bit more detail. It's not like the Game of Thrones. I've got the Game of Thrones books. I've read the first two. The Game of Thrones books are just freaking dense, and there's just too much in there. I like the series of Game of Thrones way better than I like the actual books, but that's neither here nor there. So that's a little bit about reading. It's something I want to do every single day for the rest of my life. Honestly, I'll probably read for a little bit until I go play basketball when I get done recording this, because I won't have anything else to do. And to go with that, writing. I'm not saying that I'm writing a book. That's something I've always thought would be really cool to get to someday. So I do have a blog, footyfoster.com. Check it out. I blog typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays every single week. Topics vary. And then I journal. I journal pretty much every day. Very few days that I don't actually get to it. But my thing with journaling specifically is, we've all heard that you learn better if you like write things down and take notes, just because you're making a physical and mental connection with the words. Um, so with journaling, I feel like obviously I think we have like close to 10,000 different thoughts every single day. You can't remember everything. You think of your brain like a hard drive. Like, you only have so much room up there. After, if your brain needs to make room for something, it's something that's going to get deleted. Um, so writing things down helps me remember the things that I really want to remember, the emotions that I want to remember, the things that have happened in my life or in my day that I want to remember. And it really, really does me personally a lot of good for my mental health, and it's a staple of my day. And again, it's something that I want to continue to be a staple of my day as long as I live. If you look at any of the greats, any of the super most successful people in this world, they were avid readers and writers, journals, writing letters to people, etc. It's just so many different ways that you can go with it. You can go with creative writing. You could write poetry. You could write rap. You could write blogs. You could write fiction. You could write nonfiction. I mean, you can write anything. And it's not a practice that really takes all that much time. My blog posts, the longest I think it's ever taken me to write a blog is 30 minutes. That's it. It really doesn't take that long. Just, and the thing is like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not that good at it. The thing is, nobody's good at anything the first couple of times you do something. It's a common misconception that I think people have about talent. I don't believe in talent. I believe in developing talent. Talent isn't just natural. Like, no, like I always like to use basketball as an example. Nobody is born innately good at basketball. They might have physical attributes that make them more likely to be good at basketball, like being tall, quick twitch muscles, all that, yada, yada, yada. But like, you're not born with a jump shot. You're not born with a layup package or with handles. You have to develop all that. And so, the same thing with writing. Like, when I first started writing my blog posts, I was terrible. And I still don't think I'm like anything special, but I've definitely noticed that they're getting better. My thoughts are more concise. They're clearer. It flows better. My grammar's better. Everything. So check out the blog if you feel like it. Tuesdays, Thursdays, footyfoster.com. Would really be cool if you did that. No pressure though. So yeah, I'm just sharing this because it's been so beneficial for me that I really want other people to get into it too, because if it helps me, there's a good chance it'll help you in some degree, some fashion. And I think, when you start to live life, not just for yourself, but with an aim or a goal of helping other people, life is much more rewarding. And that's all I really want to do. That's why I like coaching so much, because it's not about me. It's about the young men that I coach and helping them try and be the best versions of themselves that they can be. That's the most meaningful thing about it to me. Sure, winning games is fun. It feels good to win. But at the end of the day, that's not really what it's about. It's about preparing. I coach high school. It's about preparing these young kids for after high school. I want to teach them things that I wish high schools innately taught. So if it helps me, I think it'll help you. So if you don't really read or write, go get yourself a journal. Try and make it a daily habit. I guarantee you'll grow to love it, and you'll feel bad if you don't ever get to it. Like I didn't get to it yesterday. I was busy from sun up to sundown. Literally never just. I probably could have made the time for it. I don't know. Never got to it. Felt bad about it when I looked at my journal and I saw that it went from April 1st to April 3rd, and I didn't get April 2nd in there. It's not like yesterday was a wash or a waste, but I'm not going to be able to write down the things that I was thinking and feeling yesterday because it's gone. Those thoughts and feelings are gone, and now we're on to today. So, all right, that is it for me. Thank you for listening. Up next, I have Eldin Hasic. And again, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Follow him on Twitter at Eldin Hasic, ELDINHASIC. He's a really, really good dude, really smart guy. He knows a lot about the national team, watches a lot of football, a lot of soccer. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview, and I'll catch you guys next week. Well, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Probably mostly gentlemen. we got Eldin Hasic or Hasic
or Hasic. Yeah,
Hasic.
Either way.
On this episode of the Footy Foster podcast, my man. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. This is it's like I said, it's cool to meet you. I mean, you and I have interacted on Twitter a little bit. It's kind of wild because we actually are in towns that are kind of close together, but we've never met in person. But
yeah,
it's cool to do this.
Super close. Honestly, like I'm starting next Monday. I'm gonna be in Fort Wayne like almost every single day of the week too. So it's kind of funny. But so we met on Twitter. I can't remember exactly how we met, and then I think I noticed on your profile that your location was Fort Wayne, or I can't remember exactly what happened, but.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, it must have been one of the qualifying games because I was never really that active on Twitter. Like I had a profile, but I wasn't that active until this cycle. And so I think we just I think either I messaged you or you messaged me about whatever might have been like one of the first qualifying windows, and then then it kind of we noticed that we're kind of close geographically. So yeah, hopefully I'm sure we can link up at a local game or something, in the future. But
yeah, man, like I told you, in like 60-ish days, I'd be down to get a beer with you. I'm doing something called 75 hard. I don't want to talk about this for too long, but I'm doing 75 hard. You have to work out twice a day, follow a diet. You can't drink alcohol. That's the gist of it. So I can't drink anything. I've been kind of craving a beer or a glass of wine for the longest time, but so in like 2 months, we can go get a beer, but we can meet before then also. So that's why I said 60 days we can go get a beer. So let's kind of just go ahead and jump right into it. The World Cup draw obviously happened. What was that, Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah, the advantage of my job is that it's kind of flexible. I can work from home I usually go to the office, but on Friday I ended up working from home, and so I kind of had the World Cup draw on in the background, and all the the bad song and all that. I had all that as like background noise, so I saw the whole thing.
Yeah, I was over in Fort Wayne playing at the Plex on Friday afternoon. I actually ended up making it over there, so I didn't even see any of it. I just saw like the tail end, like them talking about our group specifically. So I'm super excited. I don't like wishing away time, but I cannot wait for November to get here because it's been, 8 years since we've gotten to watch the States play the World Cup. It's kind of mind blowing to me because eight years ago I was 18. I baby faced right out of high school. So Qatar 2022 can't come soon enough. The 8 groups are pretty interesting so far this year. We'll go ahead and start with Group A. I've got it up here on my computer screen here.
Yeah, I got a second screen, so.
Oh, you gotta have the dual monitor set up.
Yeah.
Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. Like just looking at that, I feel bad for Qatar. I see it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be hard for them to get any points, but I like just looking at it, I think Senegal and the Netherlands are probably going to be the 2 teams that end up coming out of there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the conventional wisdom is that the host usually does well, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. South Africa was the host and they didn't get out of the group. So I think
Yeah.
when you're a host, that's just, in terms of talent, like that far back, I don't think having home field and all that is going to matter all that much. So, I can see Qatar getting like a tie, maybe a couple of ties, just because the World Cup, you can have a lot of games that are just kind of 0-0, 1-1, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't see them going through. So yeah, I think Senegal and the Netherlands go through. Ecuador is a good team, so I don't think it's like a foregone conclusion that's the top two,
Oh, for sure.
but I'd say my kind of hot take on this group is that I think Senegal can win it. Like I think
Yeah.
Senegal's like I watched a couple of their games at the AFCON. I watched the final, and they're stacked. I mean, got Mendy in goal and Sadio Mane up top and a bunch of good players in between. So I could see Senegal either beating the Netherlands or tying the Netherlands and still winning the group. So I think that's kind of my my prediction here.
Yeah, I mean the Netherlands hasn't really since the 2010 World Cup where they were in the final with Spain. They've not really been like super convincing. Obviously, they've still got talent and a bunch of good players, but like collectively, they've not really done that much in either World Cups or in like the European tournaments either. So we'll see. But yeah,
Yeah,
I would think that I personally have not watched a ton of Senegal, but I would tend to agree with you that I think that would be likely to happen in this group. So who knows? We'll
yeah,
see. We'll see in November.
yeah. I think Senegal's on paper, and obviously they're the defending AFCON champions, but on paper they're the strongest team from Africa, just in terms of like where their players play. I mean, they're all basically in the top 5 leagues.
Yeah.
Just a lot of French-born players on there, so it's just a lot of just a very good team. And I think the Netherlands, I think they're kind of unbalanced. Like they've got like Van Dijk and all these like great De Ligt, so like really good center backs. De Jong, really good D mid, but like up top, it's really only Depay. Like they don't have like like their other like wingers and strikers are just they're not for their typical standard, they're not like
Right.
Yeah.
This is kind of like your average run of the mill top 5 player
Yeah, like
out on the outside.
I think they got like a like a backup winger from Tottenham, stuff like that, but no one's really like killing it.
Oh yeah, when Berghout, Steven Bergwijn, right? When he got to
Yeah.
Tottenham, like his very first game, he scored a crazy goal, and then not really done too much since.
Yeah. Yeah, and they got like I think Weghorst is like a backup there, or like they need like a goal to Luke De Jong and Weghorst are like just big guys they can throw out there, but I just don't think they have enough firepower to. I mean, they can win the group, but they're not like they used to be this generation.
Yeah, well, which is unfortunate because the more that I learn about the game, the more I appreciate Cruyff, and obviously him being Dutch. So like part of like I have absolutely no family ties or lineage going back to the Netherlands, but like there's a little I can't explain it. There's a little soft spot in my heart for the Dutch. So I think it would be cool to see them kind of rise up in the ranks in Europe again, but
Yeah,
it just takes
I mean,
time.
I mean, I know what you mean, because I think they're usually one of those teams that that every neutral will appreciate. You
Yeah.
always appreciate the teams that play well, that play open, play attacking. So I think that that idea of who they are. But like at the Euros, I mean, they had I guess the problem is they had De Boer as their coach, and so they're kind of playing a 3-5-2 and being defensive, which is not.
That's not really them.
Yeah, it's not their. Yeah, it's not their. I think now they got Van Gaal, and I mean he's getting up there in terms of. I think he was basically retired for 4 years, so like who knows what how sharp he is in terms of his tactics.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I saw today that he's got some kind of. I think he's got like stage 3 or 4 cancer or something like that. Like a pretty serious medical condition. And I think I literally just saw that today on Twitter. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what I saw.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, he might obviously
not be.
Yeah, we hope that he'll be okay medically, but I mean, he might need to step down if it's that
exactly.
advanced.
exactly.
So
So
they'll kind of be in the same position they were before the Euros, because Koeman took the Barcelona job, and then they had to get a coach, right? But like 6 months before or something like that.
yeah, that's just never. I mean, because
Yeah,
national teams already have so little time together that getting a new coach right before a major tournament is just kind of a recipe for disaster.
yeah.
So
And you basically just get. I mean, you might have a couple of friendlies in the summer, a couple of friendlies in September, and that's it. I mean, there's
that's
not even
it.
a training camp, because like that's the whole thing about this World Cup is weird. So I think the season ends. This is Group A, so they start first. So it's like all these players will be in their leagues, and then like 7 days later you play your first game. So like you don't like they're just gonna show up
Yeah, it's
with
like it's almost kind of like how it's set up with like the qualifying windows set up right now. Like you're
yeah
playing for your club right into the World Cup. Just obviously instead of just like 2 weeks off, it's a whole month of play with your club team. But yeah, that's going to be really weird. So if I am true, if I am right about that, I obviously hope best wishes to Van Hal, but tough situation for the Netherlands. So let's go ahead and move to Group B. Obviously, this is the I should have thrown on my USA jersey, but this is a good group. I was very excited when I got home on Friday and saw that we drew England. I was so excited. I was so unbelievably excited because the 2010 World Cup is like what really got me into the game, and that England game was a big part of it. Huge part of it. Just like they didn't give us a chance. They didn't respect us. No one really gave us a chance. And I know we didn't win, but like there was literally a headline: USA wins 1-1. You know,
yeah. I think
so
it's I think that the subheading is or something like that. It's a best tie against the British since Bunker Hill. Some kind
yeah, yeah,
so you get a lot of the just history jokes, and no, the old enemy. We say that in a fun way. I mean, it's a good thing about the World Cup is that you get these rivalries instead of politically. You get them on a soccer
right.
field where it's fun. You keep it in a fun way. So yeah, I mean, I was super excited as well. I wanted England for just that reason, because I think it will engage the game here in a way that like playing no one else will. Like even if we
Yeah,
play France, or maybe if we play Brazil or something like that. But I just like in the general like sports fan public that's not big on soccer, or the people that just only like will only pay attention to the World Cup. I think the fact we have England in our group is huge.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's a classic thing where England, at least the media, I mean, I don't know about, the players, but it seems like they'll underestimate us, and we'll be able to do our, like if we lose, whatever, it happens, right? But if we can get a tie, or if we can win, it'll be huge. Like, we have nothing.
absolutely.
But yeah, it's that game you're talking about. I actually remember it as well. So I was that World Cup, like I'd done some traveling. So for that particular game, I was with my parents in Croatia. And we watched the game at this kind of outdoor restaurant. And it was kind of fun because, Croatia and England had played each other in a bunch of like tournaments, and like they'd been in qualifying groups together. So all the Croatians were pulling for the US just because they don't because they've had their own beef with England. So it's kind of fun when Robert Green spilled that shot. Like this whole
Oh man.
bar full of like 50 Croatians were just cheering, which I thought was kind of fun.
I've played goalie at indoor enough to have a couple of my own Robert Green moments, and I always, whenever if it ever goes through my hands like that, I make a joke. I'm like, oh, I'm Robert Green, and not everybody understands it, but enough people like, good one. That's
The
the fifth
best
time I've heard you make that joke.
the best goal I've ever scored indoor was an own goal. So that tells you a lot about my soccer career. But I basically tried to do like a slide tackle at midfield, and then ended up being like a volley.
Oh my god.
Like it was just like it didn't make any sense, but like I just hit the ball in such a way that I just like, and then it went in goal.
Oh,
So
that's hilarious.
it is hilarious at the Plex. So
Oh goodness. So I mean, are obviously England or in the US have to be the favorites to go through, right? From Group B.
yeah, I think so. But in the same way that like we're talking about England underestimating us, I think it's important for us to take Iran seriously.
Yep.
I think Iran is going to treat that game like a derby, like for political reasons, and just
Yep.
like some of the issues that we've had like politically. I think I don't think our players will not, they might be aware of it, but they're not going to, I don't think they'll experience it the same way, but I feel like the Iranians will. And so they'll want to, they'll go for it. And I think there's all this talk that, Iran's like a low block team. They're defensive. I don't think that will happen. I think they're going to play that game to try to win it. I think it'll be emotional. I think, maybe a lot of yellow cards, but I think it's important for us to, because we have a young team that doesn't have a lot of experience. I think it's important for us to take that game seriously and to just have a strong mentality, because, we could get lost in the moment and just, underperform, which I think, kind of, that's happened in some of our away qualifiers. We went down to El Salvador and, they've got riot police and 30,000 people singing the national anthem, and then our inexperience shows. So hopefully we've grown, so that when we go to the World Cup stage, things like that don't happen. But we'll hopefully it's kind of on Greg obviously to prepare the team for a moment like that. But if assuming we can prepare well and not get the occasion and get the better of us, I think we should be able to beat Iran. It's also, I think, the third game. So by the time we get to that game, we'll kind of know.
Yeah.
So
because the first game is against either whoever wins
the unknown team, right? Yeah.
So
so it's we might just, who knows? Maybe we get to that game and we only need a draw, or we get to that game and Iran's already eliminated, or if we underperform and maybe we're in a position where we have to win, or we have to win by 2 goals or something, or we're eliminated. I mean, that's where all the scenarios come into play. So I feel like a game like that, it's the one that's impossible to predict, because how things have gone up to that point will really matter. But generally speaking, I think we would be the better team just in terms of talent. Iran they're one of those teams where a lot of their players don't really go abroad. So the fact they don't have too many players in big leagues doesn't mean that they don't have quality.
Yeah.
But I know they have a couple of good strikers. I'm familiar with Azmoun, who I think is in Germany now, but he was in Zenit St. Petersburg and scored a bunch of goals over there, and scored goals in the Europa League and stuff like that. So they certainly have some firepower.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, honestly, there's definitely I've been reading this book called What Happened to the United States Men's National Team. It's by Stephen G. Mandis. Pretty interesting book. If you find a chance to get your hands on a copy, I would recommend it. One of the things it's been talking about is obviously the indicator of a national team's talent is how many players they have playing in the top 5 leagues, but how many minutes also. But that's not always the end all be all. I think it was 1998 we played the 98 World Cup was, I think, in South Korea, and
that's 2002.
2002. Okay, yeah, it was the 2002.
98's France.
Yep. So the 2002 World Cup was in Korea. We played Korea, correct? And lost. And Korea didn't have but only a handful of players playing in the top 5 leagues. But what they did have was a bunch of guys playing in the Korean domestic league. So they were all super familiar with each other. And obviously having, home field advantage played a factor. But just that familiarity playing with and against all of your national team teammates all the time. There's something about that the talent can't always make up for, especially in terms of national team play where you're not always together like you are with your club.
Yeah, and I think that's the disadvantage, for our team, is that we have so many young guys that it's taken Greg a long time to basically get our most talented players into the team because they're so young.
Yeah.
So that our best, and also we've had a lot of injuries. So our best, 18, 20 players have spent very little time together. And that, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sorry. You go.
I was just going to say, the peak of this team is going to be in, 2026, basically.
Right. Yeah. Which was basically more or less what I was about to say. Cause I don't think any rational United States fan would look at you dead in the eyes and be like, this is our World Cup to win. It's not. Just getting out of the group would be be enough for me, and then like putting up a good fight in the round of 16, potentially making it to the quarterfinals. That would be incredible. Um, but like for me, this World Cup is all about gaining that experience and then using the next 3-4 years to really tighten up ship and go after 2026. So just got to get out of the group, got to take every game seriously, got to take every opponent seriously, and get as many games in as they can in the highest level of competition in international play. I think that's just the most important thing. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think like when you're talking about like goals and that kind of stuff, like I think every World Cup, you know, if you have a reasonable, talent level, the goal should be to get out of the group. And after that, like a lot of it, depends on their draw. It depends on injuries. It depends on luck. You have like somebody like Croatia. I mean, they made the final in 2018, but two of their games they won on penalty kicks. So you have, stuff like that happens. And so just because a team, if you make the quarterfinals or even the semifinals, it doesn't necessarily mean you were a top 4 team or a top 8 team. It's just things work that way. And so that's why, one for us is that, that we should get out of the group. And if we don't get out of the group, that should be considered a failure or a disappointment. I mean, it certainly can happen. I mean, we're going to the World Cup as the youngest team. So we could show up and, lay an egg, and it is what it is. Hopefully, at least take out of it as a learning experience. But the goal should be to get out of the group. And if we get out of the group, we'd play somebody in Pot A. And we talked about that there's 2 strong teams there, but it's not Brazil, it's not France. So you're not playing. It wouldn't be somebody who would be basically a favorite to win the whole thing. I mean, you're going to go up against somebody who's probably better, but not not overwhelmingly better. So.
Right. I mean, like I would agree that not getting out of the group would be a failure, but like Germany didn't get out of the group in 2018 just because the nature of soccer, but 2 specifically World Cup international soccer is just the margins are so thin that anything can happen. Like the only thing in my eyes that would be like an overwhelming failure would be not getting any points, not getting at least 1 win or at least a draw or 2, 3 even. Like 0 points is like the ultimate failure. I like as long as we if we look good and we lose 3 games, I like obviously I'd be upset, but like this is just such a young team that I don't know how upset that I would be, because like I'm just trying to keep my expectations within a realistic zone so I don't get to November and then let's say crap hits the fan and then I'm devastated. Like that's the only thing. That's just what I'm trying to avoid on a personal level.
Let me ask you a question then.
Yeah.
So if we play well, or we play okay, but don't get out of the group, like like we could even have 4 points and like don't go because of goal difference, or we we win 1 and lose 2.
Yeah.
So we showed okay, but didn't go through. Do you keep Berhalter or do you switch coaches? Because I think that's how I'm kind of defining failure. Because if Greg gets out of the group, if he gets out of the group and wins like an extra game, I mean his contract's getting extended, and you're giving him the keys for basically another 4 years.
Yeah, I
mean that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I'm kind of I go back and forth. Like I don't dislike Greg as much as everybody else seems to. Like back in the early part of the group of qualifying, like I was definitely team Berhalter out, but like I also am very prone to like getting on Twitter and then having other people form my opinion for me. So I'm like trying to take a step back and not be on there as much and just kind of think for myself. And like just looking at what he's done in the 4 years that he's been the coach, like the numbers do speak for themselves. He's won a crap ton of games. Obviously, like we didn't win the group for qualifying, but like the goal, like coming first through third doesn't really matter as long as you qualify. That's what matters. And so I don't know, because I think there could be better coaches out there, but like I really want the job. I want it to be an American coaching the American national team. I don't want to go back to a European or anybody else. So like our options are just kind of limited from my point of view. So I really don't know. I guess.
Yeah, and I'm probably more critical of Greg than you are, but I try to be fair.
Yeah.
So like, like if when we had a good result, like or if he does things that I in my limited knowledge of soccer, I view as the right lineup or decisions I would like. I'll go on Twitter and say that publicly. So like I don't just bash him all the time, but
Right.
and so my view on it is that generally it gets stale if you have the same coach for too long.
Yeah.
So when we've had the same coach for 2 cycles, it hasn't worked out. I mean, we tried with Bradley and Klinsmann both got fired during their second cycle. Like they didn't get the full 8 years. So it seems like if we just give Greg another 4 years, it could get stale, and then we might have to get rid of him, and then the new guy doesn't have enough time.
Right.
So what I'm hoping for is that I don't want his contract to get extended before the World Cup. I think that would be a huge mistake. It should be judged on the basis of the performance at the World Cup. And I think the minimum should be getting out of the group. And then it kind of depends on how we play, who we draw, like how do we look. If he kind of performs above those minimum expectations, then, he should be rewarded for that. His contract gets extended. It probably won't be a popular opinion, but it'll depend on how we do at the World Cup. I mean, people's opinions change. But if we if we don't get out of the group, then I think that the right decision would be to not extend his contract and
I think that's fair.
Go with and I guess the options would be Jesse Marsh, somebody from MLS, or maybe somebody like Pellegrino Matarazzo, who's he's American born. I mean, he spent his whole career in Germany, but somebody like that. I would be okay at looking at foreign coaches. I don't think I understand the argument for having an American coach because it's the national team,
right?
But I think you look at who's available and got to go from there.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Jurgen Klinsmann did relatively decently with the national team, at least for what was it, 2010, right? Or was that it was 2014.
2014. Klinsmann is also different because I think his wife's American and he's lived in California for 10 years. So.
Oh, no kidding! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, he's not exactly he's not somebody who's just here for the for the job or for the money. I think it was a little different with him. So. Yeah, I'm not sure if we have any other kind of big time coaches that kind of fit the same bill where, we don't really have any, I mean, that's kind of the Tata Martino argument, because he coached in MLS. But I don't really think there's any, foreign coach in MLS that's a superstar name that you could just, hire. So it would have to be, somebody who hasn't really had much experience here.
Yeah. Last question regarding Group B. Who, again, it's one of those things that it doesn't really matter, but would you have a preference on who makes it out of the European playoff to join the group? Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine?
Not sure I have a preference. Obviously Wales is the more likely one because Wales has already won. Wales just has to win one game. Scotland and Ukraine have to play each other and then play Wales.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we kind of have to recognize that Wales is more likely. And I think Wales has more quality than Scotland. Obviously, they're both kind of British teams, but I think if we look just in terms of how they're performed at the last Euros, I think Wales has maybe not necessarily a better team, but they've performed better. They have more experience internationally. I think Scotland's still trying to figure things out. And then they've got Gareth Bale, who, doesn't seem to do a whole lot at Real Madrid. You got all the, the jokes and everything. And then he
shows Wales.
Yeah. And then he shows up and scores an excellent free kick. So maybe for that reason, I wouldn't want Wales because I feel, I could see us playing, 1-1 with Wales and then, Gareth Bale scores a free kick or something, some kind of, quality moment. So
it'd be painful.
Yeah. So maybe for that reason, I wouldn't want Wales. I feel like we're better than Scotland. I mean, their best players are left back. I mean, Scotland doesn't have
their best two players are left backs.
Yeah, they're both left backs, right? That's kind of weird how that that's the fun thing about international soccer, right? Like England has what, like 5 right backs, but like
Right.
the best 2 left backs, from the UK are Scottish.
Yeah.
So you get things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think like Scotland's strikers like Mo Adams from like Southampton, is just a pretty average striker. I mean, they're on, in the midfield as well. Like, I mean, they've got Billy Gilmore as a talent, but nothing. I think in midfield and basically like just through the whole 11. I mean, Scotland would have a few good players, but we would be, I think, just better just in terms of quality, talent. Yeah. And the other thing would be interesting. I mean, I think it's true for Scotland and Wales, but both of them would kind of treat that England game as just like some crazy, derby, and that could, because we saw that in the Euros. I mean, Scotland was not good in the Euros, but they were able to get a draw against England, and viewed that as the whole tournament for them. They're happy with just doing that. So I don't know if like one of them being in the group and then pulling something like that off against England is like good or bad for us, because it could help us. Like maybe we win the group because of that. Like we could tie England and then we win the other games, and then Scotland gets a tie against England with 4 red cards in the game and win the group. So I'll take it if that's what happened. And then you've got Ukraine, and that the situation there is it's beyond soccer. I mean, Ukraine's in a full-blown war, and has been invaded. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy. So I know a little bit about their team. I've actually spent some time in Ukraine years ago. So I think about half their team, or maybe 2/3 of their team, is from the domestic league at Dynamo Kiev and Shakhtar.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the war, that league is not playing. And I think some of the Dynamo players are like drafted into the army, from like what I've seen on Twitter. So by the time we get to June, if this war hasn't stopped and doesn't look like it's going to, I mean, I guess it could stop in the next 2 months, or get some. But if that doesn't happen, I don't really see how they could field a team.
Right.
Or if they do, I mean, you're literally going to have half the squad be, filled with guys who would be super motivated, but who haven't really touched a soccer ball in 3 months. So, it's a situation where it's impossible to predict. I mean, I think, if we set that aside, Ukraine was decent at the Euros. They've got Zinchenko, they've got Malinovsky at Atalanta, so they've got some quality players. Like Malinovsky is really good on set pieces. They kind of have another situation like we talked about. So I think in normal terms, I think Ukraine would be a team that's good. I would favor us to get a result, but it would be maybe 60-40 us in terms of talent level. That's how I would think of it. But because of everything that's going on, I feel like it's more likely that we see Wales, just because of everything. I mean, maybe Ukraine wins that first game, loses the second. Like there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, if Ukraine is there, they'll be just even if the simple fact if they make it, because of everything that's happened, Ukraine will be the kind of the neutrals' favorite. I think a lot, the whole world will kind of want them to do well. So that it'll be kind of it'll be awkward to play against them, right?
Yeah,
a little bit. I guess I'm just hoping.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just hoping in that circumstance that, I mean, we know that like, U.S. fans usually do pretty well with, just interest in going to the World Cup. So I'm hoping we have a lot of like U.S. fans in Qatar. That we actually, not like we're going to have a home field advantage, but we should have like a good amount of fans in the stands. So hopefully that happens. But I don't know. I mean, I just hope for the best with Ukraine. Maybe I want that. I would kind of want them to do well, in the qualifiers or the playoffs, just for that reason, because of everything that's going on. But
oh yeah, I would love to see them there. I mean, they would, like you said, they would literally have the support of the entire world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's just in terms of us, like just talking, starting 11s and analyzing all. I mean, who knows? Like it's such a crazy situation that you can't really, And that would be the first game. That's the other thing. Like we're going to play that team first, and then we play England. So we have to go into that game and try to get 3 points, because the last thing you want to do is start slow, lose that game, and then you show up trying to get a result against England and then just lose to that quality, and 2 losses and you're basically done. So
I read in this book that you lose the first game. 10% of teams who lose their first game end up advancing, which basically from there you'd have to win the next 2 games or at least get 4 points out of those next 2. If you get a draw in your first game, it's about 50-50. So you got to go for the win, game number 1.
And I think the draw work, it's actually perfect that we play England in the middle game, because we don't play them first, so we can get off to a good start, and then we don't play them last. So if we're in a position where we need a result in the last game, we're playing Iran, who's a team that on paper we have more talent. So I think that's perfect that we play the strongest team in the group in the middle game. I think that works out great.
Go for a point against England. Realistically, I think that's what the game plan should be, and then just kind of play it by ear for game 3. So
we do the classic Berhalter 6-point window where we're not good in the middle game.
Yep, that's exactly right.
I take it at the World Cup. Like I mean, I'm going to be doing a lot of banter against England for the next 7 months. So like if they beat us, like I'm going to get cooked online. But as long as we get through.
There's this dude I used to play FIFA with, who him and his brother live in Chicago, but they are from England. And so like as soon as the draw came out, he was messaging us on our group chat on Instagram, like, oh my God, we're playing each other. It's like, we're gonna beat you guys. Like that was just the first thing I said. Like just no holds barred. I was like, we are getting those 3 points. You can take your bangers and mash and shove it up your mouth, brother.
Yeah, we're taking those 3 points with a 0-0.
Oh shoot. All right, Group C. This is kind of an interesting group. Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. What do you think? What are you thinking here?
I agree.
Who's getting out?
I think it's an interesting group, and I think if they'd gotten a different team other than Saudi Arabia, I think it could have been like a group of death.
Yeah.
So I think Argentina is really strong. Like the Argentina and Brazil like dominated the South American qualifiers. Like usually, like in the past, I think they usually will like be the top 2 teams. Like not always, but like this year, they like Argentina and Brazil just like dominated. Like they were winning like most of their away games. So I think Argentina's looking strong. Obviously they can start slow or drop a game, but I expect them to finish first. And I think what this comes down to is the Poland-Mexico game. I think who wins that game gets second. And then if that game ends in a tie, then it depends, like, can somebody get a result against Argentina, or is somebody going to screw up against Saudi Arabia and not win? I think that's what it comes down to. So like, if you're Mexico or Poland, like if you win, if you beat, it seems like there's like a direct competitor for second place. Like that's how I look at it.
Right. I kind of like Poland to make it out over Mexico. I just like Mexico never really like looked all that impressive in CONCACAF qualifying this window at all. This cycle, I should say, not this window. So
yeah, I think it's like a 50-50 in Poland, Mexico. Like Mexico, they're definitely not as good. I think they're stale. Like they were good before COVID, and like that front three, just like after Jimenez's like head injury, like it just seems off. Like they play slow, they're predictable. They just don't score enough goals. So I don't know, but like sometimes like a team that does poorly in qualifying like plays well at the World Cup, so like it doesn't always correlate. In Mexico, usually like their typical performance is to get out of the group and then lose in the round of 16. Like I think that's like last 5 times that's what's happened. So I'd say it's like a 50-50 on Poland, because I think Poland also like they just don't have enough quality around Lewandowski. And
right.
So like he's like, when you look at the Euros and stuff like that, I mean, there's a lot of games where like he gets like double teamed and they just, they don't have enough, they can't generate enough chances or enough quality outside of, just dumping the ball to him. But everybody knows that's what they're going to do. So like, if he doesn't like create something magical, they're not going to go far. And I think they have a good goalie, but their defense is like pretty average. So yeah, I think I'll say Mexico. Just, I don't know.
I
feel
mean,
like
it's good for the region if all of our CONCACAF nations are doing well in the World Cup and progressing. So like, it would be good if they do advance, as much as it pains me to say, but like,
yeah. I mean, I think the reason why I would pick Mexico is that I just feel like it's been so stale and they've been kind of in a slump that I feel like at some point they'll wake up. And maybe that happens at the World Cup, because I think they still do have quality. Their problem is that the midfield is getting older and it's slow, but the front three are still quality players. And I don't think like Poland doesn't have like, super athletic, really strong midfielders that I think is going to run over Mexico, like the way like we do with our like 23-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, Mexico will be able to kind of play Poland. There'll be an even matchup. One thing that could definitely happen, and this, I'm kind of going back on what I said, is that Mexico's not very good at defending set pieces. Like that seems to just, like, we always score them on headers and corners and stuff like that. And Lewandowski, obviously, great header of the ball, and not just him. I mean, like Poland's got like, they're physically kind of, a bigger team, and got Bednarek and some other center backs that are big dudes that can score a header. So maybe that'll be the way that Poland wins, if they can just get a like 2-1 or 1-0, like a couple good corners. But if Mexico can do better on set pieces and wake up a little bit, I think they could win. So I'll say Mexico just for fun. But
okay.
I think it's a toss up. And Saudi Arabia, I feel like they're going to be one of the first teams eliminated at the whole thing. I mean, they usually qualify, and then how many times have we seen them lose like 4-0, 3-0, stuff like that? So
yeah, for sure. I kind of have Argentina as my dark horse to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Something about it, like this is likely has to be Messi's last run. So I got this little feeling in the back of my head that like this is going to be the year that he finally gets to lift that little gold trophy. So obviously US would be my number one preference to win the World Cup. Assuming that's not going to happen, I would love to see Argentina win.
Yeah, I think that there are very good chances that this World Cup is either Argentina or Brazil. I think they're both coming in hot. Do you think anybody, Mexico or Poland have a chance to beat Argentina, cause an upset? I mean, obviously anything can happen, but are you just picking, 9 points?
Yeah, I saw the group as like this is 9 points for Argentina. But like you said, anything's liable to happen. Just because we think they're going to get 9 points doesn't mean it's going to happen. But that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and even if there is an upset, it'll just be one game, and Argentina still goes through, so no problem there.
Yeah. Yep. Group D, and this is my fault for not doing some research. France, they've got one of the first IC playoffs. Denmark and Tunisia. I have no idea who's in this first IC playoff.
So what I have actually gives the names of the countries. So this is the Asia versus South America playoff. So it's going to be Australia has to play, I believe it's the United Arab Emirates. And then whoever wins that has to play Peru. So I think the conventional wisdom is that Australia is favored to beat the UAE.
Yeah.
And then they play Peru. And from what I'm hearing, Australia is kind of in a down cycle, and I would probably pick Peru, but who knows? I mean, we have 3. These are all like one-off games, and they're played in Qatar, and so go to penalties or whatever.
Right. And they're played like right before the start of the tournament, aren't they?
I'm not. I thought it was all in June, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Right. It said in June. Like I was thinking, like this is a normal World Cup where the World Cup's actually played in the summer. Okay, so no, it was months before.
And that's the crazy thing is the World Cup it's gonna be in the middle of the season. So like you normally have Premier League players they don't have a winter break. They show up banged up and injured, but now they're in the middle of the season. So maybe England does better. Who knows? But it's a one-off. Whatever. There's no travel either. The whole thing is basically in one city, which is wild. But so I'd say the conventional wisdom, just to keep it simple, is Australia versus Peru is the more likely. Just in terms of picking predictions here. But I'd say France is obviously the overwhelming favorite.
Right.
I think Denmark is a really good team. I really liked Denmark at the Euros. And they killed qualifying. In the Euros they had the Christian Eriksen heart attack, another crazy thing that we've seen in soccer. And then I don't know if you saw that he's playing pretty well for Brentford, and he made his return to the national team in this past window. I think he scored in one of their friendlies.
He scored a goal in the same stadium that the cardiac arrest happened.
Like, I didn't realize it was the same stadium. But
I saw it again. I saw a tweet where like in the same stadium where he made the stadium go quiet, he like made the stadium erupt because he scored a goal in his return. That is just fucking crazy. Absolutely insane. And there's something about like a team coming together after a tragedy or something like that really, really unites the team even more so than they already are. So I enjoyed watching them play last summer. Could be a dark horse to make it pretty far in the turn. I think they're going to get out of Group D, them in France. So I would kind of circle them as a team to keep my eye on personally.
Yeah, I mean they've already kind of been the dark horse. I mean, they made it to the last four of the Euros, and I don't remember exactly what happened with the England game, but I think there was some kind of I think England got a penalty, or Denmark should have had a penalty and didn't get one. Like there was some kind of controversy in that semifinal where Denmark kind of felt they were hard done by.
Mm-hmm.
So, we could have seen Denmark in the final. I think the problem they had is that I think they had a 1-0 lead and then subbed out a bunch of players, and then England just was more fresh in extra time, and ended up making the final. But I can definitely see Denmark getting out of the group. I'm not sure I'd pick them to go like really far, just because I already kind of feel like maybe in the Euros they had like they already had that moment where they came together, and a lot of things kind of went their way after the crazy Eriksen incident. So I'm not sure that they can everything's going to break their way in terms of the draw and that kind of stuff again. But like a quarterfinal appearance or something, definitely possible. I think Peru and Australia I don't know too much about, but we don't even know if those teams will be there. And I think Tunisia is probably one of the weaker African teams that made it.
Mm-hmm.
I normally you'd have some Tunisian players that are kind of big names, but I can't really I don't know their squad too well, but I just feel like they're they didn't really do too well at the African at the AFCON. So it just seems like they're kind of talent-wise, they're going to be an underdog. So if France and Denmark, because they're both like, I mean, they're just deep and they're balanced, right? I mean, they don't really have weaknesses in terms of their starting 11s. I think they they get through.
Yep. Group E. No, you're fine. There it is. Well, what was the take that you didn't agree with? Huh? Group E: Spain, Germany, Japan, and then the second playoff team. What are the teams in this playoff?
Yeah, let me pull it up. This is the Costa Rica New Zealand playoff.
Ah, okay. Our potential fourth CONCACAF team.
Which I would say Costa Rica is kind of a 60-40 favorite there. Like New Zealand's got Chris Wood. We don't, people that watch the Premier League will know Chris Wood, and they got some. Like I looked at their squad, they've got maybe some center backs that have played at a decent level, but that's about it. I mean, it's a pretty limited squad. Anything can happen, but I kind of like Costa Rica's chances in a one-game playoff because they got Navas. So it's like it seems like all they have to do is score one goal, and Navas will keep it. He'll keep everything out. So
Yeah, yeah.
I would pick Costa Rica to make it out of that playoff. So I will be a CONCACAF homer and predict we get a fourth team.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Costa Rica gave us, obviously they beat us in the last qualifying game, but then the game in Columbus, they came out and scored right away and kind of gave us fits for most of the game. Might have been lucky that Navas came off at halftime in that first game against Costa Rica in Columbus. So maybe that was a little fortunate for us that he didn't play the full game. I couldn't even tell you the name of their backup keeper, but they're solid team.
Yeah, and I think that was the crazy thing about that Costa Rica game is that like I actually think that was one of our better performances just in terms of like how fluid our play was. Like we had that Dest goal that was like 15 passes, and then Dest has like a really nice curler.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So like it was like maybe some of the best that we've looked, but at the same time we screwed up in the first minute, just gave up a silly goal, and then like Costa Rica should have tied it. The only reason they didn't is because Brian Ruiz is like 38. Like you just couldn't run out of fast. Like if Joel Campbell, I think he was like injured or suspended. If Joel Campbell had been there, I mean he's a fast enough striker, he would have scored that,
right?
Or at least had a one-on-one with the goalie. So I think we got lucky there. And that was the game where Costa Rica that Brian Ruiz not being able to score there was the reason that they like blew it up, and they're like, all right, like we need to call up 23-year-olds from our local league. Like we can't run out our 2010 team. Like
no.
So I think now they've got the right balance. And they killed it in the last 6 or 7 games just to be able to get to the playoff. I mean, they were basically
caught fire.
Yeah. I mean, they were behind like Panama. I think they were behind Jamaica at some point. I mean, they got off to a really slow start. So it seems like they've got it figured out now. And if they win that playoff, I mean, the World Cup is, group stage is only 3 games. If you have like a goalie like Navas, like if he plays 3 amazing games, you can shut down Spain. Like,
Spain isn't like a historically prolific goal scoring team either.
Yeah.
So
they're missing a striker. I mean, this Spain team has got. I mean, Luis Enrique, I think, has got. I mean, they were really good in the Euros, but they do. They'll have that 80% possession. 600 passes, but they're just known. They don't have a Fernando Torres or a David Villa anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Morata is just not it. I mean, he's not a killer, in front of goal. So I think until they find a striker, I don't think Spain can win a World Cup with if they don't have like a one of the best strikers in the competition. I mean, maybe with a false 9, I don't know, but I think that's the the limitation for Spain. Germany's kind of a similar story. They don't really have a number 9 either.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of do I guess maybe Havertz, doing the false 9, or I mean, I don't, Timo Werner. People always kind of troll him with Chelsea with with his misses and stuff like that. But I mean, he's good at transition, and he seems to play better for Germany. So it's like I think that's kind of what makes both Spain and Germany interesting, because they have the same weakness. Like they could both obviously play really well, but if you don't have a a reliable striker, it can be tough in a tournament.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, my player comp. When I'm playing indoor, I play a lot of defense, but when I do move forward, I get myself into pretty good opportunities to shoot. I so rarely score, and I miss such easy chances. Like I swear to God, I am Timo when I'm playing attacker. up there because like I've got some surprising pace you wouldn't expect out of me. So I'll beat you to the ball. I'm not gonna put it in though. I'll put it over. I'll put it around. So Timo, I feel your pain, man. I'm on your side. You'll get it. He's gonna get it. He's gonna figure it out eventually. I know he will. I have faith in him.
It sounds like you're in our striker depth chart. I mean, you could add us to the list of countries looking for a number 9. Although I'm on the Pepe train. I trust in Pepe's talent. Only problem is he's 18, 19 still. So
yeah, he's gonna be. He's gonna be fine. Especially like we said earlier. This isn't really about us winning this cycle. It's about 4 years from now. When he's 23. Hopefully, he's got a lot of Bundesliga or whatever. If he makes another move, a bunch of top flight games under his belt, and hopefully dozens and dozens and dozens of goals too to go with it. So, who do you like coming out of Group E? I don't know. Like, I know next to nothing about Japan. I know a little bit more about Spain and Germany, so like that's kind of where I'm inclined to put my money.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the tricky thing with doing these predictions is that you can have, since we watch a lot of top 5 leagues and kind of know the top 5 league players, you just kind of know the European teams more.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to. And I'm trying to be a little careful of just picking all the European teams because.
Well, that's when I went back and looked, I had picked like 10 or 11 European teams like without even realizing it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the tricky part is that. But Japan has a good number of players in Europe, and they play well. I mean, like I think Japan has really done a good job of developing players, and they develop good counterattacking strikers. They develop like technical midfielders. We've seen Tomiyasu make it to Arsenal, so they've got good players. Like if you look at if you just pull up like their roster on like Wikipedia, like I think they've got like 15, 16 guys like in Europe. This is not like it's not one of those situations where they've got like 2 guys in Europe and everybody else is from the local league. Like they've really focused on sending their their young guys to Europe, and sometimes they'll go to like Scotland and then try to go from Scotland to like a better league. Like they've done stuff like that. So the only issue I think with Japan is that they just were unlucky with the draw. So if it wasn't like Germany and Spain, I would say Japan would get out of the group. But it's just like I think for Japan to get out of this group, Germany or Spain would have to like really flop. Like just something has to go wrong.
Yeah.
And like we've seen that happen. I mean, it happened to Germany in 2018, but I just Hansi Flick is somebody I rate a lot as a coach, and since it's his first kind of cycle, like I feel like they'll be locked in.
Yeah.
And I think Spain has got too much talent to, because like Japan is they're good technically, but the problem is when Japan plays Spain, they're not going to have the ball, and so I feel like Japan's not they're not like a set piece team, but they're like I don't think they'll match up well against Spain. It's like Spain's going to take away their strength, where like Japan's decent at decent technically and decent passing team, and like they're just going to play a game where they don't have the ball. So I'm not sure how they get out of that situation.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Japan, I think they made it to the round of 16 and played Belgium, or they might have made it even further than that.
That sounds right to me. I know. I feel like they've gotten out of the group.
They made it to the round of 6. Okay, so like my favorite goal of that entire tournament was actually from the round of 16 game against Belgium. The Belgium scored the game winner in the 94th minute. It was one of the most beautiful counterattacking goals I've ever seen in my entire life. It was if you remember it, there was a Lukaku dummy. He just let it roll through his legs to the guy at the back post who finished it off. It might have been De Bruyne who made the pass. Oh my God. It was one of the most beautiful goals I've ever seen in my entire life, just on a counterattack.
Yeah, I remember that being like a good game, but I don't like, I'm not seeing the goal. You know what I mean? I'd have to see the replay, but yeah, I don't know. It kind of goes back to what I said. I feel like Japan just got unlucky with the draw. because they've got, this is the group where you have two giants, and I don't think we have any other group where you really have two like, legitimately like top 8, top 10 teams in the same group. So
I mean, the only other group where it would be kind of close would be the next group, Group F, with Belgium, Croatia, Canada, and Morocco, because obviously Croatia was just in the final 4 years
they're
ago.
kind of on a down cycle and they're old.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Whereas Spain and Germany kind of have a little bit of a youth wave. Like they've kind of got that balance of like the younger guys coming in, but like some of the more experienced players also. So let's go ahead and move to Group F. Does Canada have a chance to make it out?
I think they definitely have a chance. I think Canada is good because they understand their limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And Herdman, in a certain sense, like Herdman got a lot of praise. And I think it was almost like, like people that are, when we were frustrated with Greg, everybody was praising Herdman, and I'm like, yes, he's doing a good job, but like what Herdman is doing is it's not necessarily a complicated plan.
Right.
Like he's got 2 good strikers, he's got fast wingers, he's playing like a low block or 3-5-2. Get the ball in the wings. We've got speed. We've got good finishers. I mean that, it's every like cup upset. Like when a big team loses in the FA Cup, it's because of something like that.
Right.
So I feel like Canada will be underestimated. Like I can definitely see like Croatia and Belgium just not like, they'll know about Davies, they'll know about David, but they, I could see their players just kind of like underestimating Canada a little bit. And Croatia and Belgium are both old teams. Like Belgium even more so because they have like old center backs.
Mm-hmm.
Croatia is actually they're trying to get some younger players in. So they've got like Gvardiol from Leipzig, who's like a like a really young good center back. And there's some other young players that Croatia's bringing through. So they're not going to be like people see Modric and just say like this team's just like super old. Like I think there's more to it than that. Like they're not some of their other kind of older guys have retired and they've been replaced by younger players who they're not the same quality, but at least they're like 27 instead of 34. So
right.
But I can kind of see Belgium and Croatia. I don't think either. Obviously they'll be the favorites against Canada, and if they play a good game, they'll beat them. But in both of those games, Canada will, if they can get a good performance from their goalie and enough counterattacks, they'll be, they could get a tie or even a win.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I'm, I said Canada has a chance, but I'm not picking them to get out of the group. The reason for that is I think Canada has just really bad center backs. And I think both Mexico and the US, like we did not test their center backs enough. I think we should have done better in our games against Canada. Like in that first game, Kennedy was like, I think in like the German second division, like he almost had an own goal, but just how much like he was just being manhandled by Pifak. And almost, we almost got him to, he almost put a ball in back of his own net just because of, every time there was a header, like he was, second best. So, and then Vittoria, who's like their most experienced center back, is just super slow. I mean, dude's like 34, and it's like he's not going to be able to hold back Lukaku. That's just not happening.
Not a chance.
So I think Mexico was lucky that we rotated in that first game against them. The second game we played Zardes, and I just don't think Zardes is just that quality. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but he just, and then Mexico, Mexico's asleep. We talked about that. So I think, what I'm trying to say is that I think Canada looked a lot better in CONCACAF than they really are because they didn't get tested enough.
Right.
And I think, the problem they'll have is that, they might, like they'll be maybe, it's good to be confident, right? But they might show up to the World Cup thinking they can really pull some upsets, and then, they'll run into Belgium and Lukaku is just going to score a brace and, they'll get a wake-up call. Like, I think that's the most likely thing to happen. Like, if Canada got Tamori, who's a diplomat, but I guess he's staying with England, then I think it'd be a different story because
Right.
he would provide, what they're missing. So yeah, I think Canada has a chance, but ultimately, I think they lose against Belgium. They maybe tie Croatia. Who's the fourth team in the group?
Morocco.
Morocco. Now, Morocco's an interesting one. I actually know a little bit about Morocco. Their coach is Bosnian. I think you and I talked a little bit about, my background. So their coach is Vahid Halihodzic, who's like this striker from the 70s. He actually played for my dad's favorite team. So like my dad kind of knows him from, back in the day, just, when he was growing up as a player. But he was a big time striker in the French league. And so he's fluent in French. And when he retired, he coached a bunch of French teams. Like he coached PSG for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got like a long career coaching in France. And then after that, he started coaching national teams. And so he coached Ivory Coast at the 2010 World Cup. He coached like Algeria in 2014 when Algeria made a run.
Mm-hmm.
That was him. 2018, he got Japan qualified. And this is the other thing about him is that like he's like old school, and like he treats like the national team like he's like an army general, and it's like if you don't follow the rules, he'll kick you off the team, like just old school. So like I don't know exactly what happened, but like I guess he pissed enough people off in Japan of all places. Because usually I feel like Japan, the stereotypes, they'd be pretty sensible, in how they make decisions, but like something went wrong to the point where they fired him like right before the World Cup, like
Oh my
6 months.
gosh.
So this is the fourth team, and they always say it this way: it's the fourth team he's qualified for the World Cup. They can't say it's the fourth team he's coached the World Cup because he didn't coach France because he got fired. So, but after he got fired there, he coached. He's coached a bunch of clubs too. I mean, again, because of how he is, he doesn't last long in places.
Right.
So like, he'll, if you're in a relegation battle, or if you need he'll show up, fix things for 6 months, and then piss somebody off, and then he gets a different job. It's just he'll also every time Bosnia is looking for a new coach, he'll sit down with the federation, get interviewed or whatever, and then not take the job and say there's it's too political, he doesn't want to get involved. So I get kind of annoyed with every time we need a coach, it's like the same story. Like they take him out to some restaurant, there's all these meetings, and then it's like, no, I'm not taking the job. It's like, this is too disorganized, it's too political, and then he ends up in like Ivory Coast or some other countries, not necessarily more organized than Bosnia, but whatever. I'm getting off on a tangent. But the reason I brought all this up, because I feel like you're not going to find too many people that are disinterested in Morocco's coach, because he's the way he is. He's kicked off Ziyech and Mazraoui from Ajax off the national team.
Kidding.
Yeah, so Ziyech is technically retired from the national team at age 28.
Wow.
And the reason was that the coach felt that Ziyech wanted special treatment. I don't know, the details, but basically either wasn't doing whatever was asked, or was not showing up to meetings or something like that. And so Ziyech is kicked off the team, who's by far, Morocco's most technical, attacking player, playmaker. And then Mazraoui, who's from Ajax, who's like a right back that's been linked with like Barcelona and Bayern Munich and, great teams. The one kind of star player that I guess is, following the rules and not getting kicked off is Hakimi. Mm-hmm. So Morocco's got Hakimi, and like he takes like free kicks for him. Like he scored a free kick at AFCON. I watched a couple of their games, and they've got good players. And he's got him qualified. The big question mark is, for the sake of the World Cup, and it's still 8 months away, is this beef going to get buried? Like, do they bring Ziyech back? Do they fire the coach just to get Ziyech back? Or does Ziyech stay out and they go to the World Cup with the same team? Like anything can happen.
Right.
But Morocco, just the way we talked about, Canada being able to, surprise, kind of the old Belgium team, or Croatia. Like I think Morocco can too. I mean, Halihodzic is a good coach, and like he took Algeria to the last 8 in 2014. So I mean, obviously, I think he kind of discovered Mahrez basically. Like Mahrez was a second division player when he got called up to the Algerian national team by this coach.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, not discover him, but I mean, brought him in, kind of took him.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think this group, there's not a group of death, but this is maybe the first group we've talked about where like all, every team has a chance to go through it. Like I feel like I'd say
Pretty
Croatia.
open.
Yeah, I'd pick Croatia if I had to pick any of them, but I think it's possible Belgium doesn't make. It's harsh to say they don't make it out of the group. I mean, they always do that, but they are old. I mean, they could really, they're going to get to a World Cup. Kind of remember like Spain in 2014, where it's like all the same old players. Like they might run into a situation where they do that and then just lose in the group stages and just really have to start over. I feel like, I guess I'm picking Belgium to get out of the group as either first or second, and I'll pick Croatia. Croatia is one of the teams I go for. I'll support Croatia, as a neutral, or because actually I have some family in Croatia, so distant family. So Croatia is one of my kind of soft spots in these tournaments, but I could definitely see Canada or Morocco going through.
It'd be pretty cool to say. I mean, my favorite part about any kind of one-off tournament, I know like obviously the first part isn't a one-off, but the nature of tournaments is just like seeing the underdogs or seeing like the surprise stories that happen. So I would be pretty stoked to see either Morocco or Canada or even both.
Here, I'll make this will be a weird prediction. I will predict that all 4 teams, every team will at least get a point.
Yeah, I could definitely see that coming out of this group.
So this will be one of those where it gets decided on the last day. I don't think none of these teams are just going to lose the first 2 games and just
roll over.
Yeah, roll over. Yeah, we're not seeing that.
All right, Group G. This is Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon.
Yeah, the weird thing about this group is I think Brazil, Serbia, and Switzerland were like all in the same group in 2018. I think, was it Costa Rica that was with them? This is like almost a repeat of like a 2018. No, there was like Serbia and Switzerland. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw in so many Balkan, weird Balkan political stories and whatever. But if you remember in 2018, because they're Shaqiri and Shaka are they're they play for Switzerland, but their family background is in Kosovo, and Kosovo and Serbia, that's a beef that goes back. But they got in trouble for like throwing up like political symbols against the Serbian players, and I think one of them got suspended for it.
Oh, that rings a bell.
Yeah, that was I think that was in 2018 because Switzerland won like 2-1, and they were I think like Albania's symbol is like the double eagle, and so they're making like a double eagle like hand symbol. There's like a way to do that.
Yeah.
And they're so because so the Serbia Kosovo political situation is that's still kind of ongoing because Serbia considers Kosovo to be a part of it. Kosovo's trying to break away. So
right.
But Switzerland usually has like because of their migration patterns and that kind of thing, they usually have like 3 or 4 guys on the team that are like Kosovo Albanian background. And I think Shaka and Shaqiri are still on the team, so that'll be the case this year. So that'll be another game where it could get like just chippy red cards. Who knows?
Xhaka and red cards go together like like pancakes and syrup. So
yeah, I don't really rate Xhaka.
Hey, he's been playing pretty well for Arsenal here in the past couple of months. So cutting my boy some slack.
It's not. I mean, he's good. It's just that he's like 30 now, and like he still acts like he's 19. In terms of like, I think it's wild that people the teams pick him to be captain. Like it adds to the pressure. Like he's got the passion. I will leave it at that.
Yeah, and part of that is you get a reputation after so long, and like there have been like specifically this
Yeah.
year, there have been instances where he's been carded. I don't think he really deserved. Like sometimes he'll get a yellow for. Like, yeah, there was a game a couple weeks ago for Arsenal where he got a yellow card, and the ref told him it was like his third or fourth foul. He's like, "That was the first time you called me for a foul this entire game." And he gave him a yellow card anyway. Same thing with
Yeah,
red cards.
that's a
So
fair
it's
point.
just part of the game.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, we see that in the NBA. You know, like once you develop a reputation, you know, yellows become red, and regular challenges or borderline challenges become yellows, and you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if
But
you've earned it, can't really complain too much. But he
yeah,
certainly has earned that reputation.
but I think this. I think Brazil's gonna win this group. Like
Cakewalk.
without, yeah, maybe not necessarily a cakewalk, but I think they win it. You know, just in terms of quality. And I think what's interesting about Brazil, I mean, they destroyed the qualifiers in South America. I think I don't think they lost the game. They might have like tied a couple of games, but it was a really like just dominant performance in the CONMEBOL qualifiers, because there are a lot of difficult away games in South America, and they just dominated. So I think that was really impressive, and they're deep enough that like even if like Neymar ends up being injured or out of form or whatever, I mean they've got so much talent that they could, they I feel like they could win the World Cup without him, like if he doesn't even end up playing. I mean that might be like maybe that's like their double-edged sword, is like if Neymar shows up, they could win it. If he's moody and just rolling over the ground, or half injured, but they still play through him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that actually kind of
Holds him
ends
back
up
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like I think I'm picking Brazil to, like, I kind of agree with you in Argentina. Like I'm kind of I guess I'm picking either Brazil or Argentina to win it. Like I feel like it'll be a South American champion. We'll talk about later about who we're picking to win the whole thing, but I'm picking Brazil to dominate this group. Maybe not dominate's not the right word, but to win it comfortably. And then you've got, I feel like Cameroon seems like they're one of the weaker teams. Like they were not that good in the African Championships. Like I watched that like a decent amount. Like I think they hosted, and it seemed like the reason they like went far is because they hosted. Like they weren't good. They just had a home field advantage. And I think Serbia is actually pretty good. I think they're better than in 2018. And I think what's interesting about Serbia is that they've got Vlahovic at Juventus, who's just a killer striker.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got Mitrovic at Fulham. I think he's got like 30 some goals already in like the championship, which is crazy. Like he might end up like with 40 goals in the championship.
Oh
so
gosh.
they've like that's the firepower they've got. Then they've got Luka Jovic, who's like, at least people kind of troll him at Real Madrid, but he went to Real Madrid for a reason. He scored a bunch of goals in Germany before that. He's like their third choice striker off the bench. They've got Tadic, the playmaker at Ajax. They've got Filip Kostic, who's like always one of the better top 5 assist leaders in Germany. He's just really good left midfielder, and just dime crosses all game. They got a goalie in the French league. They've got some decent defenders. Matic, I think, is still on the team as like as a 6. So I think that, and then Savic from Lazio is their kind of box to box mid, goal scoring midfielder. So I think they're deep. Like they've got a good coach who's like a former legend as a player. Like Pixie Stojkovic, he's like a really popular player and was the best player on Yugoslavia, like at the 1990 World Cup right before the war. So he ended up finishing his career in Japan, and then he coached in Japan, he coached in China, and then the last time they were looking for a national team manager after somebody had kind of disappointed, they brought him in, and he never coached in Europe. So like former players don't always end up being good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him in, and he plays a 3-5-2, and because they've got like just great strikers, that 3-5-2 really kind of works well. And they were very good defensively in the in the qualifiers. They ended up actually winning the group where Portugal was. Like, I think maybe you saw that was like a big storyline when Portugal. I think Serbia beat Portugal in Portugal to like in the very last qualifier, and then Portugal had to go to the playoffs. So I think Serbia might be one, like maybe a dark horse. I could see them like getting out of this group, and then depending on who they draw, like I could see them winning a game or two after that.
Yeah. So you take Serbia over Switzerland to make it out, then I'm
Yeah, I
assuming.
think because that's like a rematch from 2018. Switzerland, I think, is like they're one of those teams that's had the same team together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were good in the Euros, but I feel like they're kind of like on a at the end of that. I'm not. I don't know if they have like young players coming through. Like I haven't really noticed any kind of big talents, anyone really emerging like young that that's Swiss. Maybe there might be. I mean, I'm not paying super close attention, but
Right.
I if I had to pick now, I'd say Serbia will kind of get revenge on that loss in 2018. And I think I think they'll beat Cameroon, and so if they can do that, they'll give them 6 points and second place in the group.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, they losing in the last World Cup, that can those defeats, they can kind of fester over time and kind of sit with you, and then you get another chance, kind of can change things. So
Yeah, like we had that with Ghana. I mean, like it's weird, like how much we talk about Ghana as like U.S. soccer fans. Like, we're like, but we've played them so much. We lost. We lose like 2 World Cups in a row. We lost to Ghana, then we finally beat them, something like that.
yeah.
So I would say one thing I was glad about this draw is that we didn't get Ghana, and not because I don't think we can beat them. I just like playing new teams.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that definitely makes it a lot more interesting, changing
Yeah.
things up. Speaking of Ghana, Group H, Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and Korea.
Yeah, Ghana made it over Nigeria. I think this is maybe group of death is not the right word but I think this is a group where all 4 teams have a shot.
Yeah.
So yeah. What do you do you have like, I guess we both agree they both have, it's a pretty even group. Who are your 2 that you're taking?
I wrote down Portugal and Uruguay just because Uruguay seems to be one of those South American teams that's like super consistent. And like they always seem to get out of the group. But I mean, Korea's not a laughing matter by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know. I think this is kind of the biggest crapshoot for me. It could be anybody. I could very well see Portugal not even making it out, as easily as I could see them advancing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there will have to be at least one of these big European teams that loses in the group stage.
Oh yeah,
maybe even 2
for sure.
It's just when you look at it this way, like you kind of like I could see Belgium. We talked about that. Maybe in that Spain-Germany group, because they have to play each other. Maybe one of them, doesn't make it out of the group. There'll have to be, some giant, top 10 team that, that just, gets knocked out early. I think the problem with Portugal is that their coach is, it's the same coach that won, Euro 2016. Like they've been running the same guy, but he just plays like a very defensive kind of counterattacking style. And sometimes I feel like they have too much talent to play that way. And then Ronaldo is always on the field pretty much. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem for Man United that people are seeing, this year, is that he's obviously, at a point in his career where not everything can go through him. He can't press. And so
I think he can. I just think he just doesn't.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no
you can't,
like there's no reason that he couldn't. He just doesn't care to, it seems like.
yeah. Or he does. Well, the problem is, maybe he could press for 45 minutes, but he wants to play 90. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the issue. So I'm picking Uruguay to go through because since they switched coaches, they've been doing well, and they've got a good team. I'll give a shout out to Danny from Twitter. He's a Uruguayan Canadian dude that is pretty active on Twitter, and he's I think he's convinced me that Uruguay is a lot better than I thought they were 6 months ago, or we've kind of seen them, get better over the last 6 months since they switched coaches. So I think if you look at Uruguay's lineup, they're pretty stacked. And the important thing I think is that they're getting young players to replace their kind of, so they've got like Cavani and Suarez are, obviously kind of, this is their last World Cup, but they've got Darwin Nunez, who's been killing it at Benfica. So they could, I feel like what they could do is start Cavani or Suarez with Nunez. So then they've got like, a big gun off the bench, as a sub, and they could rotate that way. Then they've got, Valverde, Bentancur, just really class midfielders. Araujo from Barcelona, he's Uruguayan, so he's like a young defender that could, kind of refresh the, Godin's like 35, but you've got a 22-year-old stud at Barcelona that you could, pair him with. So I think Uruguay gets through, and also, Uruguay is the type of team that does well in tournaments. Like they've got that, kind of like Croatia or like one of these teams that's like they've done well for several tournaments in a row. So it seems like they've kind of got the, the experience, how to, handle a tournament. So I'll pick Uruguay to get through. I guess, I'm picking Portugal by default, but I would not be surprised if they get knocked out. But I'll pick Uruguay to win the group.
Okay.
Just, I'll at least do that. And then the other two teams, South Korea, did they get, I don't remember if they got through in 2018, but I definitely know that, they're usually a team that'll get to the round of 16, or like every other World Cup they will. Ghana, I feel like, was kind of lucky to get to this point. Like they've definitely, like, they don't have the talent they used to have. And it seems like they were kind of lucky in that they, going up against Nigeria, like Nigeria was, it's a better team, but they were able to get through. But I don't, so I guess what I'm picking is Uruguay to win the group, Ghana to get knocked out, and then, maybe South Korea can upset Portugal. They've got Son from Tottenham, and they've got, a couple other strikers that are good. I could definitely see Korea, running out a counterattack or something, like winning 2-1. And Portugal getting knocked out. But by default, I'll pick Portugal to go through.
Yeah, you asked about South Korea in 2018. They did not advance. They lost their first two games to Sweden and Mexico, but they were the final nail in Germany's coffin in 2018.
That's right. Yeah, I remember they did something in 2018 that was like, impressive.
It took out Germany.
Yeah.
Oh no,
but that was a bad Germany team. Like it was just, I don't know. Sometimes it gets stale. Like they had like Joachim Löw like for like 15 years, or well, not 15, like 12 years or something as the coach. Like that's just way too long.
Yeah. So it's a long time to be coaching the national team, and like you said, just gets stale. And I feel like in athletics specifically, like the longer that you're at a job, and like especially if you've reached pinnacles, like winning the World Cup, like to a degree, it's like, oh, what else is there to accomplish? And like you can just kind of lose that drive and hunger that you really need to excel on a stage like the World Cup. So
yeah. And the weird thing, it was like everybody agreed that like, in Germany, that like that was just a really poor performance and that like he should leave. But then he's like, hey, I'll leave after Euro 2020. Like I have to prepare the team that I just did really poorly with for my successor. And so then like, and then we got COVID. So like, that was, nobody predicted that, but like Germany wasn't good at the Euros either. So it's like, should have just gotten rid of him after 2018. I mean, it was like a lame duck kind of situation. But so I mean, you said you're picking Argentina to win the whole thing. Like, I think it'd be too hard to just go talk the whole bracket, but maybe we can just talk about who wins. Top.
Yeah, I mean, like the betting favorites, I think were. I think the odds-on favorites were Brazil, and then England, France, and Argentina were like next in line, relatively similar. But I don't know. I don't really see Brazil winning it, but for some reason, like in the back of my, like I said earlier, the back of my head, I kind of think it's going to be Argentina.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, there's good arguments for both of them. I think they're coming in strong. So, I mean, one of them at least has to make the final, right? I mean,
right, yeah, and I mean, like, how many years in a row is it, or not years in a row, but how many World Cups in a row has it been that our European team has won it?
I think it's
several,
like
right?
4, maybe 5.
It's kind of a lot. It's time to break that up.
Yeah, because it's usually the World Cup is outside. It's in Asia, so the Brazil usually like they flop at the World Cup when it's in Europe. That's kind of their the history.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Brazil and Argentina will do better in Qatar than they have in the last couple of World Cups.
Who knows? Potentially.
Yeah. I think Germany and Spain I think will do better than they did last time, and they're in the same group. So maybe whoever does better, like whoever wins the group gets the better draw. So I think one of them maybe makes the semifinals. It'll just depend whoever figures out the striker problem better, because they have the same issue. And then France is really strong. I don't like. It's kind of weird to not rate like Deschamps as a coach because he's won the World Cup, but like I feel like he's not like a great manager. I don't know, like some of the decisions he makes and stuff like that. Like it seems like they like won in 2018, but not because he was some kind of tactical master.
It was just they were clearly just the most talented and just the most cohesive group.
And they're also they were like a big team playing like a counterattacking style. Like so sometimes that can be effective in a tournament. It's like you don't want like it's kind of like disappointing to see a team with like so many ballers kind of play counterattacking and play defensive, but
hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah. So so I think I guess that's what I'm picking is Brazil, Argentina, France, and Germany/Spain. Whoever wins that, whoever's better out of those two in the groups. I don't know if like the bracket works out that way, but I think those are my picks for the 4 like favorites.
If you had to pick like one dark horse team, like one team that no one would give a shot to win it all, who would you pick?
I'm thinking like Serbia or Uruguay. I don't think Belgium has been. I can't say Belgium because like they're usually one of the teams that's talked about, although they've never won the World Cup. I'd say Serbia or Uruguay. Like I think there's good arguments for those two teams. Like they're both pretty balanced, like in terms of the squads. Like I think Serbia's problem usually is that they have like they'll show up to World Cup and then have like off the field issues or like just chemistry problems, that kind of stuff. I feel like they're coming into like just kind of like they're coming into this World Cup with like a good atmosphere. So if they can get out of the group, I can see them upsetting somebody big.
Yeah, and like you said with Croatia in 2018, just a little bit of luck is going to be involved for every single team in this tournament, as it always is. So just gotta, if what it takes is making it to penalties and winning a couple of games on PKs, that's what it takes. So
are you picking? I guess we didn't really pick any big teams to not make it out of the groups, but like, who do you think is the most likely to flop out of like the big teams?
England.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to. I guess we're biased there, obviously, but
Well, just because in like the fans' perspective on things doesn't really have any bearing on what's going to transpire on the field, but like they just seem so full of themselves, and especially like you said, if Wales or Scotland is there, like that's going to be a tough game for them, 100%. We are going
or
to be a
even
tough
Ukraine,
game for them,
because
huh?
like, or even Ukraine, because Ukraine will be just the crazy story and the emotional
Yeah.
team. So
So I mean, I could easily see England getting a little too big headed, and then like losing that first, like I said earlier, losing that first game. I think they would be playing. They wouldn't. They probably wouldn't lose to Iran, but pivotal game for them will be us. So I mean, if I'm assuming they beat Iran, theoretically, if we were to beat them in the second game, they would have it all to play for in that third game against the playoff team.
yeah, yeah. Where it gets tricky is if they tie Iran. Like they could dominate and 1-1, 0-0. I mean that can happen to
Oh yeah.
anybody.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. I mean I think my takes are in England, or my I think so. The narrative I think is that they're like this really strong team and that they did really well. That they're Euro semifinals. I'm sorry, Euro final, World Cup semifinal. And I think in both of those tournaments they were very lucky in terms of the draw. So like their draw in Russia was like pretty favorable. And they actually, they lost to Belgium twice, and Croatia, and they lost to Croatia in that tournament. So they lost 3 games in Russia. They lost one in the group stages, they lost the semifinal, and they lost the third place match. And so this tournament that gets talked about as like them being really awesome actually contains 3 losses against teams that are, against the good teams. They only, they beat Panama, and I think they beat like maybe Colombia. They didn't beat like really, really strong teams. And then in the Euros, they played at home, like the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it, and because they have too many players that like Harry Maguire, like Luke Shaw, like guys like that, I just don't rate. I mean, like you just see them, week in, week out, like they're not world class players, even though they, all these players cost 100 million because of the way the EPL works, and they're the price tag is world class, but not the actual player.
Oh
So
gosh, I want to see Christian Pulisic put Harry Maguire on the ground and then start digging a grave for him, like as his
but
celebration
you
after
remember
he
you remember
scores.
the man in the mirror, the
Yep.
Dos Estero. The
Yep.
joke I had on Twitter is like, like what if Pulisic scores? Lifts up the shirt and just says it's called soccer. Like there's memes of that. People have already, it's just such an obvious joke that people are already making memes about it.
Yeah.
Oh man, how like
That's what's at stake when we play them, is the naming rights of the game. Which
yeah.
the thing that drives me crazy about it is like it's literally an English word that they invented because of the term association soccer or association football. And that's where
Yeah,
soccer derives
the
from.
whole
It's
thing
so
is
so
stupid.
dumb.
Like I think I used to use the word football more, but now like just because of how pissed off like EPL, English EPL fans get on Twitter about the word soccer. I kind of started saying soccer more, I think, for that more than anything else. So
Literally the
whatever.
only time I go out of my way to say football is when I'm with like my friends, like my hometown friends and like college age friends, or not college age, but for like friends from university and stuff, who don't like the game like at all. Like I'm always trying to get them into it. I'll be like, hey, did you guys watch the football this weekend? They're like, yeah,
Yeah,
we
you're
watched
talking
the
about
we watched the Browns game. I was like, oh no, that's hand egg
the wrong
ball.
kind. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and like it doesn't really do myself any favors. They're then like me making those jokes is not going to make them go and watch soccer, but that's okay. It's not for them. I can just more for me, I guess. uh, um, I know I said we were going to talk about some other stuff, but man, it's almost 11 o'clock. I think I'm just going to have to. We can hold some of the other stuff. I'll get you on here another time down the road. Um, I'm dog tired. Need to get to bed. Um, so
Yeah, I think that that's probably the right call. Is there's like I don't think there's just a way to do this quick. I mean, we talked about all 8 groups. I mean, I feel like it went
Yeah.
by quickly. It was fun, but I mean, you can't talk about 32 teams. Can't talk about 32 teams and to have time to spare. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
if you want to talk about some other stuff, some other time, we can do it. It's not a big deal. I had fun. It's always fun to talk soccer. Somebody who loves the game. So I'm happy to do it again. We can find some other topics or because I think the other stuff you want to talk about, I think definitely things that we can talk about a little quicker. So we can talk later or when just hit me up.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having some of those conversations too, because I wanted to get to it tonight. I just I got to get to bed. So I appreciate you coming on, Eldin. We'll have to. We don't have to wait 60 days for us to meet up over in Fort Wayne sometime, but looking forward to meeting you in person, and I really appreciate you coming on to the pod. It was a lot of fun. So
Yeah,
thank you.
definitely. Be interesting to see in 8 months. If any of our predictions were right. I mean, I think we had a few kind of maybe not hot takes, but we predicted a couple of surprises. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's on record, so we can't like
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, that's not what I said." Yeah.
Yeah, when United Arab Emirates are going to win the playoffs, get into the World Cup over Peru.
Oh shoot! All right, man. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Take care, man.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.